So the next story we're going to talk about is a little more lighthearted, little more lighthearted, even though it eventually involves the death of 3,000 people. But the journey there is more lighthearted, because we're going to take a look at a preposterous theory called, I'm going to call it Back to the Truther. Ooh, I just came up with that. I'm always so pleased with myself when I come up with stuff like that. Back to the Truther. Did the Back to the Future movies, directed by Robert Zemeckis, actually predict 9/11? And just a quick heads up, we're still in Recommends Week, or Request Week. I don't know what I titled it, but this was actually a request via email through Justin. So Justin, thanks for the request. Now, imagine you're sitting in your living room. You're sitting in your living room, and you have your VHS copy of Back to the Future. And for whatever reason, you think, I'm going to watch this tonight. I haven't watched it in a while. I could watch it on DVD. Could watch it online. But no, I'm going to put in my VHS copy. So, little flap closes. That's your oddly loud VCR. And right when it's getting started, you can't wait to hear some Huey Lewis in the news. You can't wait to indulge in your incest fetish. That mom was very, very hot. Props to Marty McFly for resisting. But anyways, you're getting ready to start it. You got your popcorn. You hear a knock at your door. You're like, what? Oh, no, dude. I just want to watch my movie. And underneath the door, you have the little gap under your door, you see these two long arms, kind of like Slender Man style, slide under your door, fold up, and unlock it from the inside. It's Franz. He's showing up quite early in this season, because this is definitely a story that needs a little bit of Franzinian, because it's a lot of just weird facts. So Franz just sits down with you on the couch. Franz is our resident conspiracy theorist, if you're a new listener, with oddly long arms. He sits on the couch next to you, throws his arm over your shoulder, and it's long enough that he can still reach in and get popcorn and put it into your mouth. So as you're trying to move your mouth, as he's trying to shove popcorn into your mouth, he says, Back to the Future, eh? Watching some Back to the Future? You're like, that's a weird voice. You don't normally say, yeah, I know my voice changes from time to time. Did you know that Doc Brown and Marty McFly, when they first time traveled, do you know where they time traveled from? You're like, I don't know. It's been a while. The Twin Pine Mall. Sounds familiar? What other things are there twins of? You're right. Twin Towers. As you don't even respond to his answer. Yeah, you're right. And, here, let me pause it. Give me the remote. Pauses it. What time does it say? People really believe this, by the way. There's several videos and resources on all this stuff. I should start off by saying that. What time are they at the Twin Pines Mall? You look at that. You look at it. It's a digital clock. It says 1:16. You're like, oh, it's 1:16. Oh, no. You have to look at it upside down. He gets up and he picks your television setup and sets it on the upside down. What time does it say now? And you're like, it says 9/11 when you turn it upside down. Exactly. 9/11. He puts the TV back. Sets it back up, right? You're surprised because it's a CRT TV. It's quite heavy. Now, let's fast forward a bit. So, he has this car that goes back in time. Hence the title of the movie. When he goes back in time, a farmer who lived on that land that would eventually become the mall describes the car as an airplane without wings. Sounds familiar? Oh, yeah, the plane crashing into the Twin Towers. I guess that sounds a little familiar. You're right. You're learning from me. I'm glad he's become more like Gollum at this point. Now, he gets away from the farmer by crashing into a tree, a pine tree. So in the future, the mall is named One Pine Mall. You're like, oh, yeah, I guess. Mm-hmm. You see? Proof that 9/11 was predicted by Back to the Future. Not caused by Back to the Future. That's a different conspiracy theory. Now, there's other things that people tie into this conspiracy theory. One, that Muslims are the bad guys. That Muslims are the ones who attack Doc Brown and Marty because Doc Brown had them smuggle in. Oh no, he got money to get plutonium. that he was going to then sell to the Libyans, and he was going to use it for his own time travel device. The Libyans show up. The Libyan car crashes into a building as they're trying to... something happens there during the shootout. The Libyan car crashes into a little building, knocking it down. That's proof of 9/11. The fact that they were Muslim terrorists is proof of 9/11. So that was a weird thing for me because, hey, Franz, I thought that 9/11 was an inside job. It was brought down by bombs, and the Muslims had nothing to do with it. So why does this movie highlight the fact that they're Muslim? But when most conspiracy theories believe that it was taken down by bombs, and Osama bin Laden was completely innocent. Franz just shifts his eyes from side to side and just sits there silently. You can't have it both way, conspiracy theorists. You can't point to evidence of Muslim involvement in Back to the Future and then try to convince me that the Muslims had nothing to do with it in the event you're trying to reference. But that's an odd part of the conspiracy theory. So Mayor Goldie Wilson was a black guy who was running for mayor in the present. His slogan, "Progress is his middle name." You'll remember Obama's very, very famous campaign slogan, "Progress." It wasn't that, it was hope. But apparently there's some sort of comparison between that, predicted the rise of Obama. You know, because whoever thought of a black politician before President Obama is weird. Did you know, Franz interrupts us, did you know this? That there are comparisons of Donald Trump in Back to the Future 2. Yes, I know that that's actually a really common joke. No. It's not a joke. Because when the Marty McFly is fired, he looks like Donald Trump too. What? What are you talking about? I don't remember that scene. And his fax machine prints out his pink slip. Guess what it says on the pink slip? Does it say you're fired? See, proof. It predicted the future. That's what you're missing, Jason. That's what you're missing. This movie, it's not just about 9/11. It has all these other little things. But the most chilling point of all these movies, the Back to the Future trilogy is what I call it. But, so, then, yeah, Franz, okay. So the nonsense goes on and on. There's a lot of little connections between... You can take a little piece out of the movie. One of the connections is the Libyans were the people trying to get the plutonium, and 25 years after the movie came out was Arab Spring, and it started with the Libyans. So it's almost, when you take 3 movies of any trilogy, you could take the Princess Diary movies and isolate single scenes and compare them to world events and get something. I mean, you may get something. You're a loser in the end because you had to watch a bunch of Princess Diary movies, but you can find anything in anything if you look hard enough. Now, I said yesterday when I was hyping this story up that there was one thing that I found that was super, super bizarre. It is most likely a coincidence. It's almost 100% a coincidence. And I don't know if Robert Zemeckis did it on purpose, he's a mad genius. I think he may have just liked the visual. But if he did this on purpose, he may be insanely... it would blow my mind if he did this on purpose. So, the climax of the movie is this. Of the first one. They have to... Sorry, see you later, Franz. You'll be back shortly. I'm sure you'll have another story you can share with us. But he walks away. His knuckles dragging on the ground. He leaves. So, there is something that is super bizarre. So, the climax to Back to the Future is they have to rig a wire from a power line onto the clock tower. They know precisely when the clock tower is going to be struck by lightning. Marty McFly needs to be going 88 miles an hour and hit the cable at the exact moment of the lightning strike. He then is allowed to go back to the future, hence the title. So, they're rigging the wire. Doc Brown's rigging the wire. Marty's getting his car, banging his mom, something like that. I don't remember the details of why he's late or almost late. And he shows up and he gives Doc Brown a letter. The letter is warning that Doc Brown's going to be killed by Libyans. But Doc Brown goes, "What is this?" And Marty McFly goes, "You'll know in 30 years. You'll know in 30 years. He then gets into the car, gets into the DeLorean. He hits 88 at just the right moment. The flaming lines appear on the ground. And then there's like an auto lube shop called 9 Auto Lube or something. So you have a 9 on one side of the screen. In the middle of the screen, you have these 2 flaming tire tracks. So it looks like 9/11. That's utter nonsense. That's not what I was hyping up as saying he was a mad genius. That's just stupid. So, 30 years after the release of Back to the Future, Robert Zemeckis directed another movie called The Wire. And it was about a man who, and I don't want to take credit for this. This thing I'm about to tell you comes from the same source of all the other nonsense I've talked about. So I don't want to think like I came up with this, but it's quite ingenious. So despite all the nonsense of research I had to go through, all the videos I had to watch to get to this, I thought this was pretty ingenious. So I'm giving the credit to the guy who did this. I didn't write his name down because, it's just crazy conspiracy theorists, but the YouTube links will be in the description. So, and 30 years later, from 1985, Robert Zemeckis directs a movie called The Wire. The movie is about this guy wants to walk a high wire act from one of the Twin Towers to the other Twin Tower. So the plot of the movie is him trying to attach a wire. That's not the whole plot of the movie, but the climax, or what he wants to do, is he wants to attach a wire from one tower to the next and then walk across it. And you're thinking, okay, that's just a weird coincidence. And that is just a weird coincidence. They both involve wires. It comes out 30 years later. He is wearing the exact same clothes as Marty McFly in that final scene. The exact same clothes. The exact same outfit. So in that scene in Back to the Future, when he travels into the future, he comes back. He's wearing a black jacket, a burgundy shirt or a red shirt, and dark jeans. So we see him disappear in part 1. In part 2, he comes back into the past. He's wearing the black jacket, the red shirt, and the black pant. We see him come back at that very moment. In The Wire, the guy who is walking the wire from one tower to the other is wearing dark jeans, a red shirt, and a black jacket. Now, again, I'm thinking, when I'm watching the clip, the rational part of my brain is thinking, I think Robert Zemeckis just finds that a really dynamic color set. I think he finds that that combination of colors must appeal to him. Making a human look like a Black Widow must be a pleasing color set to him. But seeing those two scenes back to back, the way the YouTube video intercuts them, it does look really bizarre. And so the implication, so I'm looking at that and I'm thinking either Robert Zemeckis did this on purpose as some sort of troll, or he just really likes that color palette. The YouTuber seems to think that what the story actually is, he goes quite into detail in this. In Back to the Future, he travels back to the future at the end of that. He then goes 30 years into the future, not the 1985 future from the 1950s, but he goes from the 1985 past to the 2015 future, then walks across the Twin Towers in the movie The Walk, and then travels back in time. The YouTuber thinks that Marty McFly is in The Wire. So as much as I think that's a really compelling piece of quote-unquote evidence, I think it's just a really, really bizarre part of the story that somehow matches up. I don't think the character in The Wire is Marty McFly, because I'm pretty sure The Wire is based on a true story. And we know what happened to Marty McFly when he traveled after, because there's a sequel. So it's super bizarre because the people who believe this conspiracy theory, they really have to leave a bunch of stuff out. Like, where's all the 9/11 references in the third one? Why were the Libyans involved and not Saudi Arabians, which is actually what happened in 9/11? And again, according to you, the Muslims had nothing to do with 9/11. So it's this weird mishmash of conspiracy theories. But I think these people watch these videos. We're watching a VHS copy with Franz at one night, and they started to see these scenes, and then they just got rid of everything. I don't remember Osama bin Laden trying to sleep with his mom. Like, there's key plot elements in those movies that are not a clue to 9/11 at all. So why are you just picking out these little things? And, that's the thing. People, that stupid predictive programming thing. People go, well, before the Illuminati can commit a crime, they have to warn us about it. I'm going to do a whole segment on predictive programming, but it's utter nonsense. We'll cover that later. So, that is the story. Oh, and this was the thing that I thought was interesting about 9/11. And I could be totally off base with this. But 9/11 really, really only appeals to two age groups. Baby boomers and millennials. Baby boomers are like, oh my God, my security in my country is broke. It was I'm not saying it wasn't a tragedy. It was an absolute tragedy. 3,000 people lost their lives. Thousands of more families devastated from it. But the cultural significance of 9/11. To millennials, it was their cradle being shaked. And they're like, oh my God, this is the reality of the world. To baby boomers, it was their cradle being shaken. And they're like, oh my God, I thought we were safe. Gen Xers really don't care. Really. Like, I look at the human toll of it, and I'm like, oh my God, that's a tragedy. It's horrible that happened. but I gotta take my shoes off at the airport. Like, to me, it wasn't this huge, significant element. And generally, when I talk to other people my age, they don't really give it much social weight. They don't give it a bunch of societal weight. We go, well, yeah, they don't make movies like She's All That anymore. Like, it did kind of change stuff. But I think 9/11 truthers, they tend to either be older or younger. Because I just think that people my age are just kind of like, it sucked. Just like a house burning down sucks. But it wasn't the biggest event of our lives. It's kind of weird. I think it's just part of that whole Generation X being like, the so what generation, the Y generation, the grunge generation. We just don't care. Generally, it's older people and younger people who really looking for this 9/11 connection truther stuff. The rest of us old timers are like, whatever, man. If I can live through Kurt Cobain blowing his brains out, nothing else matters. Which is the name of a great Metallica song. So, but anyways, that is the story of Back to the Future predicting 9/11. Did it predict 9/11? No. Is there even more bizarre evidence that I couldn't fit into again, quote unquote, evidence that I couldn't fit into this episode that you can enjoy yourself by watching these videos? Yes. I will admit, the costume thing in The Wire and Back to the Future and the tower in the Back to the Future and those connections between those two scenes does seem very, very, very coincidental. 30 years later. Movie 30. I get it. Like, there's a lot of stuff packed into those two scenes. And to be fair, if that was the only evidence that was presented to me, I probably would have been I still wouldn't have believed it, but I would have been a little more forgiving on it. But that's the thing with conspiracy theories. They overdo their sundae. Sometimes you just need the plain vanilla. You need the one scoop. Bloop. It's human trafficking. That's what's going on. It's human trafficking. But then you get the other people like, no, that's boring. We got to put on like some satanic chocolate syrup and some sprinkles of reptilians. Then we got to get this cherry out of the demonic workshop. And then eventually the real conspiracy is buried underneath all this nonsense. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the best way to hide a bizarre conspiracy theory is to make it so bizarre, it's unbelievable. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.